Hey there. Thanks for joining us today. So for this week's live Q&A, I want to talk about something that came up in a recent webinar that I led, which was called Side Hustle Without the Hustle. If you are interested in learning more about Side Hustle Without the Hustle, please take a look at sidehustlewithoutthehustle.com for upcoming webinars and workshops. So the question that came up during this webinar was, how do I open a coffee shop? So that made me think about something that I talk about a lot, which is simplifying your vision. So I owe this question to Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income, and he likes to ask, what would it look like if it were simple? So a great example of this is a woman I talked to recently who was thinking about opening a mobile traditional Asian tea service, for like formal Asian tea service. So she would buy an Airstream and kit it out so it's all beautiful and very zen inside. And people would come in, would pay, come in, and then have this beautiful traditional tea service where somebody serves them the tea, and it's, just a beautiful, high-end, very relaxing experience. So the question that we talked about was, what would it look like if it were simple? Because, it's going to take a lot of money to get the Airstream and do the wrap around it and make it all renovated on the inside so it's perfect, and buy all the tea service china and all of that, right? So that's kind of a little bit of a grander vision. So what does it look like for her now? What would it look like if it were simple? So we talked about some different ideas. Like one of them might be to start doing tea services in people's houses. So they pay for you to come and bring the tea service to them. Maybe you're going to have like a booth at a farmer's market and do it there instead of doing it in your own Airstream. You just have like a tent. So some different ideas, and basically that the goal of that is to test it out, see if you enjoy doing it, see if customers are willing to pay for something like this before you go and spend all the money on buying an Airstream. So in the case, back to the gentleman who wanted to know how to open a coffee shop, I was trying to think, okay, how can you simplify that vision? So you could have a coffee cart. You've probably seen coffee carts, different places where they have the owner, has literally a cart, and they have coffee machine on there and everything, and they can come to different events and sort of bring this coffee experience to the people who are at the event. That's not really the same as opening a coffee shop, but it's maybe a taste of it. But it does require some money on the front end to set up this cart. So that might not be the best solution. So then another possibility might be to rent a space inside another location that has a space for a coffee shop. So there's our local convention center has a little space inside for a coffee shop, and people rent from them. And, like the coffee shop owner rents from them and then, offers coffee in the setting. So, sorry, we've got some people coming through. So that might be a way to simplify it. Then the biggest thing, though, I think, for this new potential coffee shop owner that we suggested is to work at a coffee shop. Just get a job at one, right, and test it out, because that's what you want to do. That's at its most simplified, his idea. Test it out. Do you enjoy it? Do you love doing, food service is its own animal, and there's a lot to go with it, and it can be very rewarding, but it's a lot of hard work, and you have to deal with some interesting personalities with the customers. And so I think that for him is probably the most simplified view of his vision. So I encourage you to take your grand vision and scale it down and see what you could do to test it out, both for yourself. Do you enjoy doing this? And also for customers, is there a market for this thing? There's an exercise that we created called Pie, Cake, and Parfait, and I linked that in the description here of the video. And I encourage you to check it out. So what it is it helps you decide on what your, or I guess not decide on, but figure out what your ideal working situation would be. So for the gentleman who wanted the coffee shop, maybe he's a big extrovert and he would absolutely love being at the counter, but maybe he would be kind of annoyed when he's working in the back and doing the dishes and doing the books, and like that would not feed his extrovert soul. So those are some things to think about, right? When you're sort of designing what you want your business to look like. So if you go and get this pie, cake, and parfait, let me tell you a little bit about it. So pie is supposed to be what is as easy as pie for you to do, that you love to do. It just comes very naturally to you. Then the cake part is, what would the icing on the cake be in your job situation? So in your business or your career, or in your job situation, what would the icing on the cake be that you would just absolutely love, that you have this little extra that makes everything better? And then the parfait piece, you know how parfait is like a layered dessert, right? So the parfait, this is that exercise, by the way. The parfait is, you start with your base layer. So and there's a whole list of things to choose from on your parfait. And the bottom layer is the foundational layer. So what are the non-negotiables for you in your job? So it might be that you want to work from home. It might be that you absolutely have to stay in a certain region because your family obligations or whatever it might be, right? Like you have to stay, in our case, like if you have to stay in Cincinnati. Or it might be that you want a certain schedule, or you absolutely want a lot of interpersonal contact, or maybe you don't want very much interpersonal contact at all. So what are the non-negotiables? That's the foundation layer of your parfait. And then the next layer up are high priority things. So for example, compensation is one of them on the list. So maybe it's very important to you to get a certain level of compensation. Then you have 2 layers of medium priority, and then you have 2 layers of nice to have, which of course on the parfait are the whipped cream and the cherry. So those are the nice to haves, not non-negotiables, but wouldn't it be great if? So I encourage you to check out, download that exercise and think through, because when you're designing your business, you might as well get it exactly right, exactly what you want to have. Thank you again so much for the questions, and